Hello, everybody. Allie Duzett here with my good friend Janelle Lara of the Part-Time CEO. And this is the thing where we read my own star chart. And we actually already did it one time with a live audience, and my Zoom timed out and did not save the recording. So Janelle agreed to come back on and do it again. And this time Zoom had better record it, or else Zoom, do you hear me? Or else. Ugh. But this is going to be good, and we'll be able to dig in again. And so before we even do that, I want to talk about why I ended up feeling like this was a good idea, even though I feel awkward about it, and why I wanted Janelle to do it for me. So super quick. I don't actually like being put on the spot that much, even though I spend all of my time in front of a camera these days. But Janelle asked if she could interview me about my star chart, and I felt so awkward about it, but I felt like it was the right thing to do because as a student, I always am just dying to know what's in my teacher's charts. And so I decided that it would be good for us to do this so that you could see what's in my chart, because everything that you learn from me, everything that I say is going to be filtered through this lens that we're going to see, and then you can take a look at it and see for yourself so that you can make a better judgment on whether or not to believe what I say and all of that kind of thing. You'll be able to see where I'm coming from. And then why Janelle? Well, Janelle is so fun and cool, and she runs the Part-Time CEO, like I said. And but the thing that I love about Janelle, so her work is to help particularly women massively upscale their businesses in 20 hours a week, being part-time, but still managing like this fabulous company, right? But she does it with things like astrology and human design. And she really just marries business strategy with your unique abilities and potential, and she uses your own charts and stuff to help you figure out what's going to work well for you. So that is why Janelle is like the perfect person to do this. And so Janelle, I'm so glad that you're here.
Allie, I'm so honored. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, but we're not here to talk about me, Allie. We're here to talk about you. So
it's true.
I am so thrilled to be here. And I just want to say, this is such a gift that Allie is giving to her audience right now, because as an astrologer, it's really vulnerable to put your chart out there for the world to see, because for other astrologers, people who know astrology can look at this and know quite a bit of information about Allie without even knowing her. And so this is just such a gift that she's giving you to put this out there. And really something that just came up for me, Allie, while you were speaking, was astrology is really about and this is going to sound weird, but bear with me. It's about informed consent, right? It's how are the energies playing out, and how do I want them to play out for me? How do I want this to look? What reality am I willing to accept based on what I'm seeing? And it's an opportunity for anyone who wants to learn from Allie to be able to see, okay, what perspective is she coming from when she's teaching me all of the things, right? Because we all go to Allie for, I think, a lot of reasons. We go for health advice, we go for astrology, we go just to hear your thoughts on what's happening in the world. And this is a really great opportunity for anyone who's in Allie's audience to say, is she aligned with, is her worldview aligned with, the content that I want to consume? Okay. And so this is really a gift. And this is just an opportunity for, everyone to get informed about who we're learning from, who I think is a marvelous person. So Allie, are you ready to get started?
I think so. Well, we might just start. Uh-oh, I don't know why that line is there. I think it's a relic from my from when I cropped this, so it wouldn't have my birth date, my birth information on there. But let's start with that rising Cancer, since it's coming into play right this moment, and then we'll skip around if that's okay. Just because I have this tuggy baby here.
Cancer. So honestly, something that I think we all know and love about Allie is the fact that she is a mom who has 5 kids, and she does such a beautiful job balancing her children and her home life and her work life. So we all have hung out with Allie while she's nursing, while she's being a mama, while she's folding laundry, while you're making chili, right? Like you really invite us into your home, where you are, you know, being your gorgeous self, being a mother. And so that is exactly what this says here. So the way that Allie dawns on people, the way that people first encounter her is with this Cancer ascendant energy, with this very maternal energy. And of course, it is almost conjunct, probably not completely conjunct, but it's very close to her Venus, which means that she attracts a lot of women to her, that she attracts a lot of money and wealth to her, and that people just love her. People think that she's beautiful. People think that she is kind, which she totally is. I've met her in person. She's all of those things. And so that's just such a gorgeous, a very soft ascendant, which I think is so beautiful. Do you have anything to add, Allie?
Well, so I will say my Cancer ascendant, so Cancer deals with the mama. Okay. It's an intuitive sign and it's the sign of motherhood. And here's the thing. I get people that want me to read their baby's charts. And when you read the chart of a baby, it's hard because you just don't know how that person is going to grow up and express it, you know? And so seeing this as a kid, I don't know if I would have really resonated with it, having a Cancer ascendant. But now that I am a mom, and everybody sees me as a mom, you know, like that's how I show up in my life, is as the mom, like with my children. And although I guess I will say in high school, my best friends all did call me mom, because I was always the one that's like, are you wearing your coat? You know?
Same.
And you have a Cancer midheaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yes, another mom energy.
And don't we become more like our ascendant the older that we get? I feel like that's been true for me.
I think that is probably true, that the longer you live in your chart, the more it just makes sense for you, and the more you kind of flow into it, or the more you cause problems with it as you fight it, you know?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so that is how you show up, and I think it's really obvious to everyone watching how that shows up for you. Where do you want to move now? Can we go to your sun?
Yeah, let's do it. This is my sun, guys, right here. And it is in Virgo. This M is Virgo. And Virgo is the analyst. She's very practical. She's the nurse of the zodiac, and she deals with physical body healing and with daily routines. Basically, Virgo is the one that you definitely want in charge of giving you your pills, making sure, like Virgo is going to be the one that's like, did you take your vitamins, you know? And Virgo is very logical and really needs things to make logical sense all the time. And she can be really a perfectionist, and she doesn't just want herself to be perfect. She wants literally everyone and everything to be perfect. And also Virgo is pretty sure that she's right. That's trademark Virgo. She's like, I'm right.
Absolutely. Well, and you have so much energy in Virgo, and Virgo is really, did you already say this, that she's the nurse of the zodiac, right? Like,
yes.
She's there, and it's so funny because Virgo is, I feel like, the physical nurse. So she wants your physical body to be healthy, right? And then Pisces is more like that emotional body, right? That intuition, the spiritual, right? And so you have, you know, as your midheaven and then as your IC, that axis, which I think is really, really significant. And then also what is also significant here is the fact, so something that I think is really beautiful, and I think why we really love to listen to you, is because you're very grounded. Okay, Virgo is an earth sign. Your sun is in Virgo, as well as a whole bunch of other aspects, and you're very grounded, you're very down to earth, you're very practical. And so I think we feel very safe to listen to you and kind of hear your thoughts and the way that you're processing things regarding, you know, life. But also what's fascinating here is that this sun is almost conjunct, or perhaps considered conjunct, your black moon Lilith. So can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, so black moon Lilith, I heard some astrologer refer to her as the BITCH, which is being in total control of herself. And no one tells Black Moon Lilith what to do. And she is an energy that is heavy into boundaries and being, you know, being in charge of herself. And it's kind of the dark feminine energy. It's the independent woman. You know, if feminine energy is typically associated with a more dependent energy, Black Moon Lilith is where that is not the case. Black Moon Lilith is that independent woman. And I really think of her as like the medicine woman. And she's got like her staff in one hand and her big like falcon on her shoulder. And she just like tells it how it is. And she doesn't necessarily mean to be rude, but often that's the downside with Black Moon Lilith. She's going to speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may. And her real trick is to learn how to do it tactfully instead of really in a really negative and offensive way.
Absolutely. Well, and what I find so interesting here, so you have absolutely, I think, really mastered this idea of being the medicine woman in a healthy way, right? Figuring out how to be healthy in your expression of Black Moon Lilith. But what's really interesting about everything here, you have your South Node and Vesta, this is all in your house of childhood. Can you share a little bit how that showed up for you growing up?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, this Black Moon next to my son, I mean, my dear poor mother can verify that I was really a little butt for most of my childhood. I was such a jerk. I really, at the same time, you know, I would do what she asked me to do. You know, I wouldn't be nice.
That's the Virgo.
That's the Virgo.
Like it, but you did the right thing, maybe.
Exactly. I was very dutiful and I did the things that she asked, and I would do it with a crap attitude and be like, you're the worst, just so mean. But I did get the job done. And yeah, I mean, this is going to deal with family baggage, like ancestral baggage and personal, like pre-earth baggage. This Vesta keeps the fires of life alive. And so in Roman times, like the Vestal virgins were in charge of keeping the light at the temple going 24/7. And so they were up in the middle of the night. They were working around the clock to make sure that everything was in order for the fire to keep going. And so I do feel like all of that energy really showed up in how I had to take care of my disabled brother. And show up even when it was not convenient, dealing with the family baggage. Maybe I didn't do it with a great attitude all the time, but eventually I figured out how to do it with a better attitude. And that was good. Here, I'm gonna pause the recording while I put her down for a nap. Pause. What? Oh, that was the share. Nope. Let's try it again. Okay, I'm back. I just put my baby down for a nap.
222.
Huh? Oh, you too?
No, it's 222.
Oh, 222. Perfect. Hey, awesome. So anyway, that was my Virgo Palooza down here. And that's Mercury in Virgo as well.
Well, I was about to ask you, how has all of that really strongly influenced the way that you think? Because Mercury is all about your brain and communication and how you think, and it's there in Gemini's house, the third house, but it's in Virgo, which is also ruled by Mercury. So it's one of the rulers of your chart. So I feel like that's pretty significant there.
Yeah. Mercury rules Virgo, and whenever a planet is in its sign that it rules, it kind of like has extra influence. So my brain thinks in an extra Virgo way, for absolute sure. I feel like I'm very logical and very analytical. I mostly read nonfiction. I love science books and I read a lot of them and I really enjoy them and I think it's fun. And man, in this third house, so this third house is ruled by Gemini, who is the kindergarten teacher. And so my brain just naturally loves to dig into like science concepts and like higher level concepts, and then parse it back down to the kindergarten level. And my brain just sticks it right in order. And so I told this in the last recording, but that didn't save. But the day before we did this the last time, I was walking home and my husband saw me talking to myself. And he's like, "Why are you talking to yourself?" And I said, "I was writing the best lecture. Like, oh, I just love it. Like putting everything in order, like simplifying it and making sure that everybody can understand point A goes to point B, goes to point C." And for me, I feel like my brain is just extremely linear. Which is why it's been really interesting to have all of this stuff in Pisces, because when I finally stepped into that Pisces stuff, it was a little alarming because Pisces is really not linear. And I've had to kind of come to terms with that and then see how linear I can make it for all the people that really want to figure out intuitive healing.
Absolutely. Well, and I have a lot of probably apocryphal ideas about astrology, but I just want to say, we talked about Gemini being the kindergarten teacher, Sagittarius being the professor, and I mentioned in our last recording as well that I just really feel like Virgo is the high school teacher, right? Like it's very much this idea of like, no, like we need to think about this a little bit higher level, but also recognizing like Virgos typically tend to think that they're smarter than other people, and I live with a few Virgos, so I know this to be true. And so it's like, okay, we're gonna raise the level of sophistication here, but you also really want people to be better, right? And that's something that I love about Virgo is they really want everyone to achieve their absolute highest potential. And so there is a little bit of that push pull there, which is super fun, but that makes you an amazing teacher. And so what was it like for you, Allie, to, because you have a Pisces midheaven, and I know you told this story about how you got a reading from an astrologer, right? And they said that you were going to be this massive energy healer and all this, or this massive, healer. Tell us that story about that transition from being like hyper logical, practical Virgo to moving into your higher calling of being the healer that you are.
Yeah. So I had my star chart run when I was 19 years old, and I did not order it because at the time I was not really in a space where I would necessarily appreciate such a thing. But my aunt ordered it for me and gave me the transcript, which I still have, and I still refer to it. Because one thing about astrology is if you will see it for yourself, if you order your natal chart done by a couple different people, everybody has a little bit of a different take, even though it's the same stuff. And I feel like I always get something new out of everything. Like I learned something new like last time we recorded this, Janelle asked me about an aspect in my chart that I never noticed. I was like, what? And so you just keep learning new things. But anyway, he read my chart when I was 19 and he said, "Oh, you will be a psychic healer, but you've probably got a whole lot going on in your logical brain, and you've got to do some right brain push-ups and embrace your intuitive side to awaken all of that." And I read that and I was like, what is this wacko on? Like, what? Like a psychic healer? Like I'm like, I don't know, studying the hard sciences and getting my college degree and all of this stuff. And I was just like, that doesn't even make any sense. That's so silly. So it was when me at 19, but then by me at 25, my third eye was like opening up and I started realizing like, oh my gosh, I think I'm psychic. And I'm Googling, are Mormons allowed to be psychic, And I thought, oh my gosh, that astrologer, he said I was going to be psychic someday. And so I opened up my chart from him. And what he was referring to was this moon at 1 degree Pisces opposite my 4-degree Virgo sun. And my midheaven, sorry, this is my midheaven in Pisces and my north node in Pisces. This is a hugely Pisces heavy chart. And he had seen that and said, oh my gosh, she's got a lot going on in Pisces. Pisces is the sign of the intuitive. It is the sign of the intuitive healer. Like if Virgo is going to deal with the physical body healing and like making sure that you do the physical body things every day, Pisces is the one in charge of intuitive healing, emotional healing, subconscious mind. It's the one that's one with the universe, it's all like, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I just want to say, like, for anyone listening who's like, who is this chick? Like, who is she? Why is she this healer, right? Like, she's so young and awesome. Like, how did she learn how to do all of this? This nodal path is literally what Allie was made for, right? Like, she came in with a ton of knowledge of science and physical healing and this ability to be logical and to analyze and be very practical. And then she is called to move towards this idea of being a healer, a spiritual leader, a very intuitive person, which makes sense why this is what came really naturally to you in childhood. As you moved into adulthood, this is where you're at now. But you really do bring those two together. Like, you are a medical intuitive, right? Like, there is still the physical body, there is still science, there is still that practicality piece. And really, you're just ahead of your time, right? Like we talked about before, like you're like in 20 years, all the science will be caught up to you, right? And so that really is part of your calling. And we didn't even touch really on your moon sign, but that's like who you really are on the inside, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about how the moon impacts your chart?
Yeah. So for everybody, the moon, so the sun is kind of like your core self, you know, and so everybody mostly knows your sun sign. Like if you Google up your birthday and your sign, what you're getting is your sun sign. But your moon sign is what's going to tell you what's going on under the surface. Your moon sign is how you feel about the world and like the internal workings of your mind, you know? And so my moon is in Pisces, and what that means is, although my primary energy is a Virgo energy, my mind is still going to work like a Pisces. So it's still going to be very intuitive. Pisces just kind of like, it's very floaty and ethereal and flowy, and things just kind of flow to it. You also have a Pisces moon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So you know, it's just, I mean, would you say that's how it is? Like things just kind of come to you and
I don't know why this is true, but it is. And
yes.
And it's very much this feeling of it's very much this feeling. Mine's in my 6th house, so it's kind of all day every day I'm just receiving wisdom from above or whatever, you know. And it's like, I don't know why that's true, but it is. And then inevitably, you know, I'll discover that it is in fact true. But it's also a very emotional sign. And I find that the way that it shows up for me, which is different for you, is I feel very distracted by collective energy and collective emotions. And so it's interesting because we talked last time we were together about how you support your clients through such difficult and oftentimes traumatic events. And it doesn't affect you, as not in the sense that you aren't empathetic, but in the sense that you're able to support them. Like with me, I like want to throw up, I can't sleep for days, right? Like when I feel too much of this like collective energy, I have to retreat. Versus the way that I think, can you explain how it shows up for you? Because you are able to help so many people without taking on their energy. And I think that's something that's kind of unique to you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And since we had that conversation, I've thought a lot more about it. Because I realized, you know, you're right. Pisces is a little infamous for not having boundaries. Like that's a little bit of the trademark for Pisces, is it really struggles with boundaries, but I like don't. I'm like,
love boundaries.
I love them. I'm crazy for boundaries. And I think that's a lot to do with that Black Moon Lilith is conjunct my sun. And so my natural self, my core self is got a strong flavor of boundaries. And then this double Aquarius flowing into the 9th house where all of this little action is going on in Pisces. Every time that you have a double cusp of the same sign, okay, so this is an intercepted house with a double sign of Aquarius, that's going to just kind of adds some extra oomph to the sign, and it kind of shows that all of the energy in here can kind of flow into the next house. So what that just kind of means for me, like Aquarius is very humanitarian oriented, but it also can have like pretty good boundaries. Not always, but it can, because it wants everybody to stand in their own power, you know. And so whether or not the person who has a bunch of Aquarius actually lives that out, they probably have that desire. And I feel like that desire that I have
expression.
Yeah, the highest expression of that is going to say, I want everybody to stand in their own power. And then, so that's all flowing into my moon.
Yes.
And then I also have that Black Moon Lilith that's like, but for real, stand in your own power. Like, I'm going to be in my power. You stand in your power.
Absolutely. No, and what's so beautiful about that too is that, yeah, an Aquarius wants to serve. It's all about serving humanity. So wherever Aquarius shows up in your chart, that's where you are called to serve and heal. Of course, it's in the 8th house, which is the house of like going really deep. And so you serve humanity by talking about the deep stuff that other people don't want to address. And really supporting them, you know, even on a, you know, obviously on an ancestral level, right? Like deeper than just the physical body, which of course we've talked about, but also all of this is in your 9th house, which is that house of mastery, right? Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, this is the 9th house where my moon is and my north node. And then the midheaven always is right here. It's always at the end of the 9th house, the cusp of the 10th house for everybody. But yeah, this is the house of the professor and the house of higher thinking and expanding horizons. Okay. And I think of it, so I love the terminology of it as expanding horizons because you can think of it in a lot of different ways. It's going to deal with physical travel and expanding your physical horizons and going places, but also like mental horizons. And so I do feel like I have this calling to be the professor, you know, of Pisces. And that's how I like think of myself in my own mind. I'm like, I'm the professor of Pisces. I literally think that.
I love that. It's like Clue. Who did it? The professor of Pisces.
Yes. That's so funny. Actually, I always play the professor when we play Clue. We play Clue a lot. I'm always,
Of course
that's
you
my
do.
professor.
I am Miss Scarlet, LaDa.
Yes. I love it. Yeah, I do. It's funny because though, as a child, I don't know that I would have resonated with the idea of myself as a professor. Now that I've kind of stepped into myself, I feel like obviously I'm the professor. My destiny is to teach. That's my point. Like the point is to teach people, you know, how to take these Pisces abilities that we all have. Everybody has Pisces in their chart. Everybody does. And if it's intercepted or if it has nothing in it, it's still there and it's still active and we all get to draw on it. And I feel like my job is to teach people how to use that in this really logical way, in a really linear way, in a way that you can be actionable and do a step-by-step thing. So that I do love that. Yeah.
Yes, that's an amazing nodal axis. And I think too that, so I love how you said, now that I'm stepping into myself, right? I really want to like talk about that for a second because you have gotten to the point where you've gotten so young, right? Because you have been extremely intentional about doing the work and also about listening to your intuition. There's a story that you told that I've been inspired by ever since you told it about how I would like you to tell it. So your third eye was opening and you were like, what is all this wooey gooey stuff? And you said, okay, God, I'm going to listen to my intuition. I'm going to do whatever it says. Can you tell that story? Because I think that's going to be really powerful, in particular for the women listening.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So all of this stuff started happening at the same time as far as my third eye. So what had happened was my brother was really sick and dying, and he was on hospice, and the hospice worker came and showed me how to do kind of like a Reiki-esque kind of quantum touchy thing where she could touch him and he would go to sleep. And that was really my first introduction, like, oh my gosh, this stuff is really real. I have to know it. And I learned how to do hands-on healing. But as I would touch him and as I would touch other people, as I was practicing for the sake of my brother, I started getting glimpses, like my third eye was kind of fluttering open a little. And at the same time, I was having this like identity crisis because I knew that I'm obviously female, but one day I went to the temple and I felt like God called me to repentance and said I was operating too far in the masculine and that I needed to repent and start operating from a more feminine space, which was a shock to me. Guess what? Not in the 10 commandments, buddy. And that's why I was like, God, this is not a 10 commandment, but it didn't matter.
Get out.
Yeah, I was very upset about it. I cried every day for 6 months, but I felt like, okay, I have to figure out like being feminine is more than lipstick. It's more than having long hair or wearing high heels. So what is it? Because I was like, I already do those things. And clearly God says it's not enough. What do I have to do? And so that's a whole other story. Oh my gosh. But one of the key things was intuition. And I felt like God was telling me, you have to stop obsessing over logic and what makes sense. You have to be willing to be led by things that don't make sense. You have to be willing to trust the intuition that I send you. And so it all kind of culminated on this one night where I decided, okay, God, I'm done fighting with you over this. And I will follow my intuition 100%. I will follow it ahead of logic. I said, the first thought that comes into my head, I'm going to believe it. Anything that I think, I'm going to believe it. And the weirder it is, the faster I'm going to believe it. And if you tell me to do anything, I'm going to do it. And if the weirder it is, the faster I'm going to do it. And I was like, God, this is on you. I will do it. I will do it, but it is on you. And I'm not responsible for what happens next, because I will do anything that you say. And you just have to make sure I never think anything wrong. And so I made that promise. And that was at 11:30 p.m. At 4:30 a.m., I woke up with a vision of somebody's energy field. I knew exactly what was wrong with this person's body. I knew exactly how to fix it. And I had instructions to go to her house and fix it. And it was a terror. I mean, I was terrified, and I put it off until at 10:30 that morning. God was like, okay, you literally just promised me not 12 hours ago that the weirder something was, the faster you would do it. So why aren't you there? Why aren't you at her house yet? And so I repented and called her up and said, hey, I have something for you. Can I come over? And she said, okay. And she didn't really know me. We were like acquaintances, and I showed up and said, okay, well, actually what I have to give to you is like, I had this weird vision of you and I need to like touch your feet for a minute. And I know this is weird. And she was a good sport, and we got the job done, and she felt really different. And that was the beginning. And ever since that day, every day has been like that, where just all of these things just show up in my mind, and I just have to act on them right when they show up. And that's how it goes.
Amazing. Okay, there's several things that I want to touch on there. So a couple of things, because I want to give a little bit of a caveat here, because you said like everything I think, I'm just going to believe. And something that I say often is I say, don't believe everything you think. And so, but you did this so intentionally. And so anyone listening who's like, oh, I get to just believe whatever's in my mind. No, you don't, because you haven't done the work that Allie has done. Number one, Allie has done a massive amount of healing work. Number two, Allie has an incredible relationship with the divine, and she gave it over to the divine. And also, there are a lot of aspects in this chart that show how intelligent and how clear of a thinker Allie is. And so I want to quickly speak about this Grand Trine air, which is the aspect that I think you were discussing, that flows from, that you hadn't noticed before, because it flows from Jupiter in Gemini to Pallas in Aquarius down to Hygeia in Libra, which is intercepted, which just means that it's kind of harder to access, right? And then back here to Jupiter. And so you just have these, an abundance of thoughts, right, that are very strategic, right, that are very intelligent. Air signs are very intelligent, quite logical. And it comes down here to Hygeia and Libra, which means that it is actually self-care for you to think your thoughts, give yourself time to think, and also to share them with your tribe, as is, explained here with your Jupiter in Gemini in your 11th house. So do you want to touch on that gorgeous trine?
Yeah. So I had not really paid much attention to that trine until Janelle brought it to my attention last time. But the more I've thought about it, the more I think that it really is a big player for me. So this Jupiter in Gemini, Jupiter is actually considered in detriment in Gemini, which means that it's kind of like the most unlucky place for Jupiter to be. And I used to look at that and feel like, oh my gosh, like what a pain. It's in detriment. Oh, it's got to show up in such a horrible way. But it's here in the house of groups of people. And Gemini is a talker, and it loves to think about lots of things. That's why Jupiter in Gemini is considered in detriment, because Gemini is just such a come on, like an eclectic energy. Like it just wants to learn about all sorts of little unrelated stuff. And when Jupiter's there, it just blows that up. And in the
how like the curiosity killed the cat. Like Gemini is so curious and curious and curious. And then when Jupiter is in there, Gemini is abundantly, wildly curious. And it's like, that could be a negative.
It's true. It could kill the cat.
Wild. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And now I see how it really is a big blessing, and that all my curiosity, now I get to come and talk about it with my group of friends. This is the 11th house of friends, all my best friends. Yeah. And so that's really fun. And this is Pallas in Aquarius, which I've always felt like is a very big player for me, because she's just very strategic, and she thinks in the 8th house about things that other people don't usually think about. And I feel like I'm always kind of thinking around the corner, you know, like I always just like take it around the corner and see what's going on. And these just flow together because I get to think my weird thoughts and then come over here and just tell all my friends, guys, guess what weird thing I thought about?
Yes. And you're thinking your weird thoughts, but you're also thinking, okay, how does this serve humanity? How does this make the world a better place? How is this beneficial for others? And then you take that and share it with your friends. And so I feel like we're on the cutting edge of being a part of your community and being in your group.
Thank you.
For sure.
So what Janelle pointed out last time we talked was this Hygeia down here she's in my interception, but Hygeia can deal with self-care. And she said, I bet sharing your thoughts with others is a form of self-care. And I thought, oh my gosh, it is. Whoa, I never thought about that, but it really is true that if I'm having a bad day, I'm always just like, I just need to go make a video and talk to my best friends now about something weird that I thought about.
Well, and what that does too for you, Allie, and we've already talked about this, but your house of Libra is in your house of home, and Libra is all about making things beautiful, making things fair, making things balanced. And since you started doing this, like you think all your thoughts and you share them with all your friends, and that's self-care for you, that blows open that Libra interception. And you've started decluttering, you've been talking about getting a new home, right? Like all of these things that is, I feel like you've gotten access to now. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that is true. I have made big strides this is my 4th house of my home, and then Libra makes things beautiful. Yeah, I feel like that is definitely true. Here, one second. I'm going to pause for a moment and get my baby. We're back.
Okay, so we just talked about that Grand Trine air and how that you just have a very clear mind. And so I think that just really supports you, obviously, in many ways, but it also makes us really excited to learn from you. So since we are talking about Grand Trines, do you want to talk about your Grand Trine water?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Because so water is the intuitive sign, right? Water is the emotional sign, and you actually have a lot of support there. And so of course your North Node in Pisces, you have your Chiron in Cancer, and then you have Pluto in Scorpio, which loves.
You know what? I'm not sure it's a true Grand Trine. Let's see.
Is it not?
I don't think it is.
Or does it go to their ascendant?
It goes to my ascendant. Okay, yeah, no, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, no, you're right. There is a Grand Trine. It goes to my ascendant. Yeah.
And it has a kite, doesn't it?
Yeah, there we go. And there's the kite to Black Moon Lilith.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, 13 degrees.
Ascendant in Cancer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull up your chart on the back end too.
Yeah.
Confirm. But yeah, talk to us about what that means and how that shows up for you.
Yeah, so a Grand Trine is when you see these little blue triangles. That means a trine, and it indicates a big flow of energy back and forth. When you have 3 trines together that make a triangle, that's considered a Grand Trine. And so here we have the North Node at one end, we have Pluto right over here, and then the ascendant right over here.
It is the ascendant, yes.
Yeah, because it's at 13 degrees, 14 degrees, and 10 degrees. So that's why they're all about 120 degrees apart.
And your kite is actually your South Node.
Oh, okay, there we go. Then here's the kite is at the South Node. So that actually is really interesting. So so what Grand Trine means, so we have this two-way flow in all directions, and when you have a Grand Trine where there's a whole triangle, it means that all three corners kind of flow into each other and activate each other and have a bigger influence on your chart and how you show up in the world. So so I guess we'll
Sorry,
just start with the
Sorry,
yeah.
I misspoke. The south node is not the kite. There's a sextile from your ascendant to your south node, which I still think is interesting, but there actually is not a kite because Pluto actually goes to your black moon Lilith.
Okay, I was gonna say I never noticed a kite in my chart before, but that would explain it. But there is still the Grand Trine, correct?
Indeed. Yes, that is correct.
So I guess we'll start with this nodal path, because everybody's nodal path, like this for me shows my destiny to go from this logical side to this intuitive side, and that's my destiny. But everyone has one of these. Everybody has a nodal path, and your nodal path shows your destiny. And a lot of you are going to watch this. You also have this Virgo to Pisces nodal path, or the opposite, which is very similar, the Pisces to Virgo nodal path. Okay. So what this means is kind of like my destiny and purpose in Pisces is going to flow a lot with this Pluto in Scorpio and my ascendant. So we talked about my ascendant. This is the mommy, okay, Cancer, and this Venus conjunct the ascendant right here is, you know, again, it's going to involve women. It could involve money. So like having a business where I get to be a mom and teach women primarily flows really well with my destiny. And down here, we didn't talk about this in our last recording, but I love this placement for myself, this Pluto in Scorpio. And I feel like it's really true. And I love it as part of this trine. But Pluto in Scorpio Pluto's in charge of Scorpio. It deals with death and rebirth. And where Pluto is on a chart, that's where you can end up depressed. And it's where you are being called to be reborn. And this has been a little bit of a hard placement for me because it deals with, in the fifth house, it's going to deal with, you know, raising your children, which can be, it's a hard, I have this Cancer Chiron over here. It's hard. And sometimes I feel like I'm dying, but we just keep going. But the other thing about the fifth house is whatever is in your fifth house, that is how you express your artistry. That's where you're going to show up creative. That's where you're going to go and create things that are beautiful, your art that you're going to share with the world. And what is my art? My art is Pluto in Scorpio, and it is I don't know, how does it, being an artisan of death and rebirth. And that is what I do. That is the way that I most express my creative self, is creating these sessions and lessons where I can teach people how to die and be reborn. You know, we're letting our old selves die and be reborn into a new way of thinking and a new way of living. And we're healing. And the other little stuff in that fifth house is Sagittarius, the professor. So I love that. But you can see how they all flow together. Like my destiny is to show up as this mom and, you know, curate a death and rebirth in a really artistic way, and maybe even in a fun way, because this is the house of Leo, you know, and I have a lot of fun dealing with death and rebirth for myself and for other people.
I love that. There's like a factoid that we all become entirely new creatures, right? Like over the course of a year or something, right? Because we shed all of our skin cells, all of our hair, like, right? Like everything is kind of regrown and rebirthed, right? Over a period of time. And so I think just what you do is you kind of support us in rebirthing our energetic body, right? And that whole thing. Was that an aha moment for you?
I love that so much. Yes, it's so true.
Yes, you just help us fluff off all this stuff and be reborn, which is so fun. Let's talk about your 12th house Chiron, because Chiron is the wounded healer, right? That's like that energy that you really have to turn over to Christ. It's in your 12th house of spirituality, but it's also quite close to your ascendant, which means that it could be even quite visible. And it also has to do with being a mommy, right? And we have talked about like, oh, the things we could do if we weren't a mom, right? Like if we had all that time and all that, energy back, like, oh, the things we could do. But alas, we are called to a different path. So can you just share how has that, and that's trining your Pluto. So how has that energy shown up for you?
Yeah. So that Cancer Chiron, and Janelle and I had a big conversation the other day about how Chiron just shows up in such a variety of ways. Here, hold a marker. Yes, so fun. So in Chiron, it does deal with motherhood. It deals with intuition, and I feel like there has been, this is going to be like the mother wound from like, growing up and being kind of a witch at my mom, right? There it is. Also here, a very wounding experience. Being mothered and also being a mother is, I love it. And it's my rising and my Venus is there. And like all of this is going to be like, really, it loves being a mom. And then this part is going to be like, oh, but it also makes me feel like I will die, but I love it so much.
Absolutely, yes.
And then in the 12th house, it's also going to deal with issues of intuition, which I feel like I definitely went through that crisis of logic versus intuition. That was another manifestation of this energy. And in the 12th house, this is the house that is ruled by Pisces. This is Pisces's natural home. And so I really love that placement because I feel like, Chiron is the most wounded part of your chart and it's the most masterful part of your chart. And so I know from that placement that I can like really master all the things that are hard with motherhood. This is going to help me like unlock it and be the master. And also I feel like it really is supportive to me in my destiny of being the professor of Pisces, because it is in the 12th house. And I feel like a lot of my ability to understand what's going on in the unseen world and translate it for other people, a lot of that comes from that Chiron, that deep wound that can be transformed into great mastery.
Well, and I think something else that you absolutely show the world is what a really powerful relationship with God could look like. And that is the house where, your relationship with God, your spirituality, your religion kind of exists. And I think you have, there are very few people who I think have the type of kind of candid relationship that you have. And I think you're an example of that to all of us, which is so incredible and so needed.
Thank you. I hadn't really thought about that, but it's true. I feel like God is my best friend and we talk all the time and we have since I was a kid. And we do keep it candid. God knows everything. He knows when I'm mad and he knows when I'm mad at him, but we're still best friends.
What this says is this woman has no problem wrestling with God, which I think is a beautiful thing. So speaking of wrestling, we cannot look at this chart without coming up here to your 10th house, Allie. So this is like your most visible house. This is how you're meant to show up in the world, on the world stage, right? In business, in your job. And you have an intercepted Aries here with a couple of key aspects here. A couple asteroids, you have Mars. And so I'm sure this was frustrating for you when you first saw this and you were like, intercepted Aries in my business house. No, I'm doomed. But you are not. In fact, you've built an incredible company. You're an amazing action taker. Can you talk a little bit, before I go on my soapbox about Aries, which you knew I was going to, can you talk a little bit about what this means for you?
Yeah, so I have Mars in Aries, and so Mars rules Aries, and so that's a very intense Mars energy and a very intense Aries energy. And it's true that, so I have nothing in Taurus. I have nothing in my second house, which is the house about money. This is the house about money. This is the sign about money. I have nothing. And my house of business has this big interception. So Aries has no line through it, none of these doors. And that just means it's kind of a trapped energy for me. And to have my Mars in there, oh my gosh, yeah. Learning about this and trying to figure myself out using this chart, it just irritated me to no end. But I can see how that Mars in Aries has always been active. Like I've always been an action taker, and I can be on like the risk taking end of things. I once did an archetype chart for myself, which I haven't even done a video on archetypes at all. But anyway, I have the gambler as one of my archetypes, and I think it's that Mars in Aries. I saw it and I was like, no way. And then I thought, no, but who else would say, God, I will do literally anything that you tell me, so don't tell me anything wrong. Like, of course, it has to be a gambler. And so that's that Mars in Aries. And I don't gamble with money really, but I gamble with the other kinds of choices that I make in my relationship with God, really, I think.
That is so fascinating. Well, and I think you've really blown open this interception by leaning into your Pisces midheaven, right? Because it's cusped by that 10th house. And so that's the thing is, so I don't have any interceptions in my chart, but I have had them on a couple of solar returns. And I've just been like, oh no, like this energy is just going to be trapped for this whole year, right? But I think you're a great example for anyone who has interceptions. Actually, no, that is not trapped. You just have to enter through the door, which is the beginning of that house in Pisces. You've leaned in as the intuitive, as the healer, as all of the things. You've leaned in, you've blown open that door, and here it is. You have this abundant, marvelous business, and you have this gorgeous energy here. So of course there's Mars, the action taker, the self-starter, all the things, but you also have two other placements here. So you have White Moon Selene and you have Eris, and they're almost conjunct, and so to the degree. And so I love Eris. I absolutely love Eris. Eris does not have a very good reputation among the asteroids of astrology because she, in mythology, was like kind of this war-mongering female, the goddess of discord, right? Like she's Mars's sister, so quite aggressive, quite angry, not strategic, like very much this like violent. I think about like just very violent, right? And so, but that's kind of the lower manifestation of Eris. There's also this higher manifestation, which to me is the Amazon. Like wherever Eris is in your chart, it's where you are empowered and it's where you empower others. And it's really the aspect of your chart where like you won't take shit from anybody, right? And like that's the chart where you are going to stick up for yourself. You're going to protect those around you. And something that I just love is for you, it's softened by White Moon Selene, but also you really empower the women in your group and the women who you come across in your business to know themselves, to heal themselves. You say you are a healer. You literally say all the time, you don't need me to do this for you. You can do this. Everyone is a healer. You empower people to create their own businesses around healing. And you just really, I think, feel this kind of protective mother hen energy, right, for the women in your group. So another kind of apocryphal point there, but how does that feel for you, Allie?
I think that really is true. And I hadn't really thought about it until you brought it up. But yeah, that, and it's funny because early on in my life, I really feel like I embodied this in a very unhealthy way, where I was very brash and very, up in people's faces, and I could just be like pretty rude, telling it how it is, and like, I don't know, I'm not in that space anymore, thankfully. But I do think that White Moon Selene helped me get out of it. White Moon Selene is going to be an energy, it's kind of the opposite of the Black Moon, where if this is the independent, like do it myself feminine, this one is going to be much more flowing and loving. This is like the ideal snuggly mommy, and so yeah.
And you know what else I just learned about White Moon Selene, that when I leaned into if this felt true, it rang so true for me, is this is wherever White Moon Selene is on your chart is where you have an extra helping of this like white light of protection.
Ooh, I have not heard that, but I love that.
And I feel like, to me, this feels like where maybe like where White Moon Selene, it almost feels like that's where an angel shows up for you, where your guardian angel is. And so I want to share that with you because you have an extra helping of protection on your business.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh. That feels very true. Wow.
You literally, someone attacked you in your business and your work, and did you get an apology not 2 weeks later? A public apology? I've
True,
never seen
I
anything
did.
like it.
That's true. God said, "What do you want out of this, Allie?" And I said, "I want a public apology." And I got it.
Yes, you sure did. And so I just think that that is so gorgeous. And I want to say too, you mentioned kind of like this Leo that was empty, and a lot of my clients will be like, but Janelle, I have nothing in my career house. I have nothing in my money house. I'm doomed. I'll never be successful. That is not true. And so I do just want to point out that notice that Allie's money house and house of things is the only house in here that is quite empty. However, what I love about a house that is empty, it's that zodiac energy is actually just unadulterated energy, right? Like it is a very pure energy. It's not commingled with anything, and even more so for you because it's a double Leo. So it is really Leo. You make money being a Leo, being yourself, being who you are, right? And I think that is so gorgeous. And so you have built a very successful company. You attract a lot of clients to you, right? By being who you are, which is this gorgeous healer, right? All the way from Black Moon Lilith up through your Pisces midheaven. And of course, your tribe also brings you quite a bit of money because it's Taurus here in your house of tribe. And you have, really, we love giving you our money because you operate with so much integrity and you really lean into sharing all the things that you're thinking and all the things that you're learning. And so it all just kind of flows so gorgeously together. So Allie, this is your gorgeous chart. And it's been such an honor for me to dive in and to share with your audience, like, why we all love you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janelle. I know you have to go. I was gonna give them a quick conclusion after you leave, but thank you so much for this. Thanks for getting me to do it.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you later. Bye, friends.
Yeah, bye. Janelle had an appointment and she had to go right away, and I'm afraid I made her a little bit late, but man, I'm glad we had to re-record this because the first time I was so flustered, I couldn't even contain myself, but this time is good. And I just wanted to mention one last thing for because I think it is important, because Sagittarius is the guy that rules the 9th house, and this is where my moon is and all of this stuff, like the professor of Pisces, right? And before we get to Sagittarius, I'll mention that the planet that is in charge of your ascendant is called your chart ruler. And it's kind of like the default decision maker in your chart. And the ruler of Cancer is the moon. So you have your big three, which is your sun, your moon, and the ascendant. And then if you have it, the big five, the next two big things are going to be your north node and your midheaven. And 3 of my big 5 are in Pisces, but my ascendant is ruled by the moon, which is in Pisces. And so this is really a big outsized player in my chart, and it's in the 9th house, which is ruled by Sagittarius. And so I just wanted to mention this little thing right here, which is Saturn and Uranus in Sagittarius sandwiching the galactic center at 26 degrees of Sagittarius. That's where the center is of our Milky Way galaxy. It's located at 26 degrees of Sagittarius. And I have Saturn here at 25 degrees and Uranus here at 27 degrees in the 6th house of everyday life. So in my everyday life, I have to be the professor. That is where my Sagittarius is. I have to go and teach you guys every day, or else I feel very sad. And I feel like I'm not doing my self-care, which is true. So Saturn in Sagittarius is going to add a bunch of mastery and also some karmic baggage. This is where a lot of my karma has been that I've had to work out. And indeed, a lot of my trauma has come from teachers and school educational experiences. And what happens, I read a thing that when you have Saturn in Sagittarius, a lot of times that means that you're going to have a lot of like triggery experiences with teachers, which for me has been true, where usually what happens is teachers start out loving me and after a while they like deeply hate me. Not always true, but often true. And there are a number of teachers out there who like hate me a lot, which is fine. That's allowed. You're okay to hate me if you want to. This is Uranus. And Uranus has those big ears, you see? He's that purple guy with the ears, and he's listening, and getting all of these insights, okay? Uranus deals with surprise insights and also with catastrophes and unexpected events, volcanoes, earthquakes, things of that nature. And so for me, as a Virgo is in charge of the 6th house, where I have all of this energy, and Virgo really loves to have a daily routine. And I would love to have a daily routine, but I feel like I never can because surprise insights are coming to me every day, or surprise events. And I feel like I can never count on what's going to happen in any day because a surprise is going to happen and I'm going to have to deal with it. And so that is that, this mastery of teaching every day and some karma involved with teaching every day. And then these surprise insights that make it so this is basically why I'm always just surprising everybody with what I'm up to that week, because I don't know what I'm going to be doing and I just wake up and know it, and that is this. And then this last guy right here is Neptune in Capricorn, which I wanted to mention before we go because I feel like that's a really important energy in my chart. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So all of this Pisces energy in my chart is also going to reflect to my Neptune. And Neptune, remember, it goes with Pisces, so it also is going to deal with intuition, that one with the universe, spirituality, but it's in Capricorn, which is an earth sign, and it's very, very practical. And I feel like that is one reason why I am grounded with all of my weird intuitive stuff, and why I am able to take all of that woo-woo stuff and make it practical and grounded. Part of that comes down to that Neptune in Capricorn. And like Pluto, Neptune has a very long orbit. So a lot of people born around the time that I was born are going to also have have Neptune in Capricorn. And so that's a very grounded energy for our kind of woo-woo side to hang out in. We're ready to take that woo-woo and make it into practical reality and do it in a grounded way. There's some people that I can't even follow them, like other big healers that I can't even, because they kind of talk like this and they're so woo-woo and I can't handle it because they're not grounded. They have this really solid they've got their two hands grasping that Pisces energy, but their feet are not on the ground. And so I feel like this for me has really enabled me to, have a solid grasp on Pisces, but I do it with my feet on the ground, and we're able to put it into that practical and grounded space. Okay. Wow. Well, you just listened to me talk about my very own self for like a serious hour. So I can't believe you're still watching this. If you are, oh my gosh, thank you. I am very honored. But I hope this is really helpful to you to kind of get a bigger perspective on me and where I come from, not to make it all about me, but just so that as you are on your healing journey and you're listening to me as a teacher, now you have this resource to say, okay, but where is she really coming from? Because I know for me as a student, I don't know, I'd really appreciate this kind of thing as I'm evaluating where my teachers are coming from, because every time somebody teaches, they're teaching through the lens of how they perceive information. This chart here is how I perceive information and also how I share it. And so thank you so much for being here. And I just love you guys so much. And I hope that you have the best day.